Hi, I'm Shane Hurlbut. I'm an ASC cinematographer, and I wanted to kind of talk to you about something. Getting started in this industry is almost impossible. And my wife Lydia and I, 14 years ago, created a resource called Filmmakers Academy to make it possible. We saw a lot of gatekeeping in this industry and not a lot of sharing knowledge. So we wanted to pull back the curtain, give you confidence, teach you all the necessary skills to be an amazing, successful filmmaker, and package it all on this online resource that you have at your fingertips, on set, on your phone, on your laptop, whatever it is. So we're going to give you $50. So if you go into the show notes, click the link, and hit the promo code FAPOD50, you're going to get $50 on your first year of an all-access membership. And I cannot wait for you to join our immense and immersive community at Filmmakers Academy, where we network, we share knowledge, we just bond as this huge filmmaking resource to ignite your creativity and push you beyond your boundaries. I cannot wait to see you in the Academy, and let's get to the podcast.
Welcome to the Inner Circle podcast. If you're here, it's no accident, and it's because you want to level up and transform your filmmaking career. I'm Lydia Hurlbut, holistic coach and Reiki master.
And I'm Shane Hurlbut. I'm an ASC Empath cinematographer. And we want to make sure that you follow us on Instagram and also our YouTube channel. Definitely subscribe to that. You can follow our podcasts on Spotify and Apple. And this amazing podcast is now lit completely by Nan Lux and Nan Light. And we have re-engineered the whole studio to be all just Nan Lux and Nan Light. And we're so happy with this new sponsor. And today we have one of my very good friends, George Billinger, with us. And we have done 3 movies together. We started out on Drumline.
Yes.
Then we did a little indie 1114.
Great fun.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then our last one was Terminator Salvation.
That's right.
Which that was a monster of a project.
It was
together.
a monster. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
But he's here today to really dive into his career, how he's transitioned from being a camera trainee all the way up to a amazing Steadicam operator to now being a cinematographer. And we are going to talk through all those pivot points and all his transitions and the wealth of knowledge. All right, Lydia, take it away.
Okay. George and I realized that we had not seen each other in 12 years.
That's right.
Oh my
It's
God.
been a really, really long time.
Long time.
Thank you, George, for coming by, for sharing your wisdom today. We're really excited to dive in.
Great.
And so I think your career is so broad and you're incredibly talented. You have such a wealth of knowledge to share with filmmakers. We'd love to hear from you about your greatest hits, kind of what you're most proud of. Please dive in, tell us.
Okay. Well, let me start with I'm so honored that you say that and flattered. I don't know where to start. I think I should just leave now while I'm ahead. Because now I have to finish that. But thank you for, being so kind. It's very nice of you. So where do I start? I mean, very good question. I can start with a little bit of my background, which I can share. A lot of people don't know this, but I had a very different route getting into the film business, very circuitous. Mm-hmm. And that is, I had a whole other career before I went to film school.
Really?
Yes, I did. Yeah. A lot of people don't know this. It's part of my history that I don't really share, but
You were a computer geek.
I wish I was that smart. No. I was a firefighter paramedic.
Oh my God.
Yes, for the city of Ventura. City of Ventura Fire Department, and I was there for, it was everything that I wanted since I was a young little guy. It was my life's calling. And I became a firefighter and stayed with the department for about, a number of years, probably 3 years or so. And then just had a moment where I decided that there was something else out there for me to do, and I wanted to explore that. And I took a year's leave of absence from the department, and I got into film school at Loyola Marymount University.
Oh, nice.
And that's how I started that. Yeah, so I have a whole different background and legacy, but for me, it all related to the human condition and storytelling, because I was living a reality that most people never get to experience, and it impacted me in a way that made me have a different perspective of the world and creativity and artistry and all of that. It all related to that. Yeah.
Wow, that's very interesting.
I love that so
Yeah.
much, George, because I actually worked with firefighters doing emergency services for a while. And for those of you that don't know, it's a big deal to become a firefighter and
Yes.
go through
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
academy
It really was. Yeah.
and to get
Yeah.
certified. And there's a
Oh, yeah.
lot of physical stamina required. So
Totally.
I can imagine on set, it's super handy that you have this.
Oh, yeah, my God. Now I see why you're like built like a brick house.
Yeah, you didn't know that. No, yeah. Good at carrying heavy loads and just get up there. How many flights of stairs? It doesn't matter. Just go. I'm good for that. Yeah. But yeah, so that's how I ended up in school. So when I graduated from Loyola, I was like already 27. I was already older. I was, everybody was 4 years ahead of me at least or more. So when I got out of school, I was like 27, 28.
Nice.
Wow. And so how did you break into operating and becoming an excellent
upon graduation from, I have a degree in film production. I majored in cinematography, a BA. And upon graduation, I became a fellow at for the Academy of Television Arts and Sciences. They have a program, and they still do, where they pick. They have 12 different disciplines, and I got the cinematography discipline for that year. So I graduated, and they sent me over to Warner Brothers.
Oh, nice.
As an intern, basically for a number of months, and that was my first time on a big movie set in a big studio, and I didn't know what the hell I was doing. Totally lost, just this guy. But I learned a lot from that, and then that took me to working, at a camera rental house, which was with Robert Keslow, if you can imagine that.
Oh, wow!
That long ago. Yeah, I know. I'm dating myself already.
He started in like a sea container or something, or a roll-up door. Right?
That's right. We started at a place called CinePro.
Right.
Which became General Camera West when Panavision bought it.
Right.
And CinePro at the time was kind of owned by his father, in New York.
Yeah.
General Camera.
Yeah.
And Milt Keslow. And Robert and I met, and I hung out there. So after my internship was over, they sent me over there to work as a camera prep technician. And I had no idea what to do, but I kind of faked my way through it. And yeah, and it was a mess back then. As it was not like in the high quality and rental, hierarchy of where you want to go to get equipment.
Yeah.
If you were in there renting stuff, it was like, oh, great, another low budget indie. Yeah. We're going to go there. Yeah. So then I got in the union. I did the union route. That's all I kind of knew. I got in the union as a loader. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, that's how.
What was your first project you worked on as a loader?
Well, what happened is I got hired at this commercial company in Studio City called Filmfair.
Oh, I know that place. Yeah. I used to work there all the time.
Who was ahead of me in the lineage was Jeff Cronenwith.
Oh my!
Jeff
God.
was in the camera department there as the guy, right? He did all the prepping and loading, and would go out on all the commercials. So he left, and I took his spot.
Wow.
So that was my first job. So that's when I got in the union as a loader, and I would, prep all the commercial jobs, load up the trucks, spent like endless thousands of hours over at Claremont, which was across the street. Yeah. And I became that guy, and that's how I learned how to become a camera assistant and a loader.
Wow. I remember the days because they had their own sound stage there.
Oh, yes, they did.
Whole camera department.
That's
lighting
right.
Stuff.
Oh, my God, yeah.
It was a completely self-sufficient kind of commercial production company.
Absolutely. Yeah, it was amazing. Yeah. It was an amazing facility back in the day. And Dick Kearns, the executive producer there, was a graduate of Loyola Marymount.
Oh, wow.
So he went to the school and said, I need somebody in the department who can maybe do this job. make sure that
That's so great, George. So you have transformed and grown your skill set so much.
Yeah.
And obviously, Keslow is a totally
Keslow,
different entity than it was from what you were originally describing. And I think it's fascinating to understand that transition. So you went from there, then into operating. And then how did the jump to Steadicam happen?
Yeah.
Well, so I was in film school. I was like the guy, the geek that worked in the film checkout room. I was that guy. I had a big techno background and I kind of loved doing it. So, the only thing I really knew how to do well was I could pick up a camera and shoot with it, not knowing how it was going to turn out. But that's what I was used to. I had no idea about working on a big encompassing, film crew. That was totally foreign to me, having an assistant. I'm like, what, an assistant, and you're going to do this and that, and all the lineage of a major camera department. I had no experience with that. So I had to kind of start over because I was like, well, I'll just pick up the camera and do it. And like, no, you can't touch that. You do it like this. And, a guy does that. And like, who? Well, this guy and that guy. I'm like, okay. So it took me a while to master that part of the craft, to become a good assistant. Now, I have to say, as a camera assistant, it was not, got good at it, but it wasn't what I had aspired to. I had to go there and participate.
I remember your focus being real shit.
Yeah, it's the worst. Yeah, I would just underexpose everything like 3 or 4 stops so you couldn't even see it. So it doesn't matter. But yeah, anyway, so I was doing that for a number of years. So I probably had maybe 7 years in total, or 8, 9 in that between loader, second, first assistant. And I said, I knew I have to do something different. And I want to, I would love to learn and I want to know. For me, it was about storytelling.
Yes.
And I wanted to, use that skill that I had and this innate sense of like, looking at that and putting that in front of a camera, not being back there manipulating all the stuff, which is vitally important. And I got very good at it, but I had to kind of force myself and took it very seriously, of course. So I just started trying to operate what I could. And back then it was all non-union work.
Yeah.
So I went from being, a union, person and doing very well with it to like doing a lot of non-union stuff back in the day. And that's how I kind of cut my teeth. Okay. And, the first person that actually mentored me, and I got very lucky, was Jim Glennon.
Oh, right.
Yeah. Yes. Jim was the first guy that hired me. We met at Cafe 50s on Van Nuys and Ventura Boulevard. I got recommended, and I didn't know what the hell I was doing as an operator. So calling myself an operator was like, what? How many hours do you have? I like 3. Good. yeah, you're the guy for this TV movie of the week. You'll be just fine. And he goes, George, we sat down, and I'm super nervous. And his father, Burt Glennon, was a huge cinematographer in Hollywood. Burt shot 10 Commandments.
Wow.
Stagecoach, numerous other, illustrious family. Jim did all this great work with Owen Roisman.
Yep.
Sorry,
yeah.
Let's do that again. Jim did great work with Owen Roisman.
Yes.
And Jim was a fantastic assistant. He did that masterful shot in The Conversation, that zoom. That was all his. Mm-hmm. So Jim was one of the premier operators at that time, and that he had moved up to DP. And he literally hired me. He said, George, I'm hiring you because you're wearing a really nice Hawaiian shirt.
So you never know.
I never know how that's going to work out, because you probably don't know anything about operating, but your shirt is super nice. And you seem like a nice guy.
My first project I ever worked on in my career was James Glennon as the DP.
Wow, yeah.
It was called Lemon Sky with Kevin Bacon and Kira Sedgwick, and they actually met together on that movie and started their relationship. Yeah. And James was he was a great mentor because he was very exacting.
Yes.
He was hard on you.
He was.
You had to do your very best.
Oh my God, yeah.
I all of a sudden got on the dolly one day. I was a dolly grip, and Richard Mall was a key grip.
Oh, sure, yeah.
And Richard just threw me under the bus. He goes, all right, you operate for James. He's going to be on C camera. And I screwed up the dolly move so times, and he just would give me these looks.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. The looks were amazing. Yeah, he was everything to me, and I was fortunate enough to have that experience and learned how to operate for like 2 or 3 years before I picked up the Steadicam.
Oh, nice.
And in the beginning of my time with Jim, he told me a great story because he would watch me totally screw it up, or he'd say, let me do it because you're never going to get this, and you just stand over there and take notes, which I did. But he told me a great story when he was starting out. He said, so George, I've recently moved up to operator and I'm on a big set and it's a big stunt. And this guy's going to, back then it was a high fall from like 60 feet. And the director says, what I want you to do is you're going to find him, be on him, and then you're going to let him leave frame. That's your shot. That's what I want. He jumps, you're on him, go with him, and then you let him go. And Jim goes, okay. So the take, action, they roll, the guy jumps, and Jim starts, and the guy hits the frame, and then Jim, he misses him, and then he finds him again, and misses him, and finds him, and misses him 6 times. Up and down, up and down, up and down, the whole way down. Cut. And the director says, Jim, how was it? How did you do? And he goes, you know what? You're going to love it. I didn't just do it 1 time. I did it 6. So when I would make a mistake, Jim would always say, remember that, George? It's going to be okay, but yeah.
Aww.
Anyways, yeah, he took very good care of me, and God bless him to this day for really giving me all that. It was the best training I could ever had. Yeah.
Well, it's so important, and I think the mentorship that you both are discussing,
totally,
really is critical in your confidence.
It really is.
So let's fast forward a little bit because we have so much.
Yeah, so much to talk about. Yeah.
And I want to get to your really big break. Like, what would you consider this amazing big break, and how did that happen for you?
Yeah. Okay. So my big break would be my first movie with Janusz Kaminski and Steven Spielberg, which was Terminal. And I have the date of that. What is it? 2004, I think it was.
Yes.
Yeah. So before that, I had done a movie. Did a movie with Jimmy Kwiatkowski, who was he still is Steven's, illustrious
key grip,
and key grip, a tremendous guy. I mean, so good at what he does. And we met on the movie Ray with Pavel Edelman.
Yes.
Oh, wow.
And Jimmy was the key grip on that. And we hit it off, and Jimmy was nice enough at that time. Everything still, Jimmy was the one who would recommend, crew and people and personnel to Janusz and Steven. And so at that time, they had I would call it an opening. A shot became available on Terminal, and so he recommended me to Janusz.
Now, were you terrified?
Yes. Yes, terrified beyond. I had an interview that I can't repeat what was said for public consumption. But if you know Janusz, he's the best ever, but he has a way of thinking that's different from everyone else. And
very much so.
Very much so. But in the nicest and greatest way, this guy is, I consider him just such a dear friend and a mentor, and he's given me so much. But anyways, Jimmy says, okay, I'm recommending you for the job. And I'm like, I don't think I'm ready. He says, you're ready. You can do it. I've seen what you can do. And we need somebody, and I'm going to make it happen. I'm like, okay. So he says, you're going to have an interview with Janusz. And I'm like, okay, prepared. When's that going to be? We don't know, but we'll figure it out. So I'm figuring, okay, I'm going to rehearse. I need to say something really good. I'm super intimidated by this guy.
Yeah.
Spielberg. I'm a nobody. I'm a nobody, like just kook. And I'm on Riverside Boulevard at La Salsa getting a burrito in the car. I'm in between doing some stupid camera shit, and burrito in one hand and the phone. And Jimmy's like, hey, George, it's Jimmy, and Janusz wants to talk to you. And I'm like, what? Janusz wants to talk to me? I said, no, I can't do it, not now. And he said, screw it, get the phone, And so Janusz gets on and starts his interview. Hello. You're friends of Jimmy's, are you? Yes, I am. Okay, well, anyways, and then, a lot of choice sentences were talked about. It was funny. And I didn't know how to respond. I was like so overwhelmed. I'm like, what do I say to that? I'm like, I don't know, I either sound like an idiot or I just go with the flow and I say, sure, I can do it. And yeah, no problem and whatever. And I just decided to just hang it out there and just say what I felt like, which was like, yeah, I am. And, so what? I'm good. Let's do it. I'm ready. And a few other little anecdotal jokes, which he liked, I guess. And then he goes, well, you sound like you're great. You're hired.
That was it?
That was the interview. It was like 30 seconds. I literally, to this day, you sound great. You're hired. And then the phone goes back to Jimmy and he goes, good, we'll see you on set. So, yeah, it was the most, just amazing experience. And knowing, if you know Janusz, that's how he is, but he couldn't have been nicer, So I got so for me, it was like you have those moments in your career where luck comes into play and fate.
Yeah.
And circumstance. And I had worked for that moment. I wanted it and I wanted it and I wanted it. And somehow I, just kind of, the stars aligned. How, it sounds dumb, but they did. And I got that opportunity. Now I had to make the most of that opportunity. That's when the pressure and the stress started, because you walk into that and you know that, there's a very small window for you able to prove yourself.
Yeah. You got to bring your A game.
You got to bring your A game, and you have to get you mentally prepared for that. And, at that time it was one of the biggest sets I've ever been on.
Oh, that was massive.
Massive.
They built that whole thing. Soft suns.
Yeah. Like we ordered David Devlin back in the day. I think he ordered like 250 soft suns.
Yeah.
And there were 6 cat generators outside with a fuel truck that came twice a day. You've never seen a set that's so huge and intimidating. So when that was being built, I went out there to check it out. And after my first day out there, I said, I don't feel so good. I can't imagine day one, and I'm asked to do something. I said, and I would count the days down like, oh no, 1 week before we start shooting.
So let's talk about that. So what was the first thing Spielberg ever said to you on set that first time? Was there any conversation with, did he come to you, or was it all through Janusz?
So the first day was, I got up in the early morning. I went with Jimmy to relax. We went to the gym in Malibu. We were shooting down at LAX in this office building. We hadn't gone to the big set yet.
Yes.
But that was the first day. I walk in and I'm like, I don't know. Looking around, and there's Steven. And I'm like, there's Steven. Look at him. He's sitting on the couch reading his sides and his script. And I'm like, oh. And the Janusz goes, Georgie, come over here. I'm like, yes. He goes, let me introduce you to Steven. And I'm like, okay. And Janusz goes, Steven? Steven's, yes. This is George. This is Jimmy's friend. I don't know anything about him, but if he's no good, we can get rid of him by lunch. George? True. George meets Steven. And Steven just kind of sheepishly like, hi, George. How are you? And and I walked away going like, oh my God.
Okay, the fact that you actually showed up to set after that is, in my mind, miraculous.
I just had to go with it.
Yes.
I had to go with it. I said, okay, they get it. But so it was a way to alleviate the stress. But the other side of that is he meant it. It's funny. You know when, it's all funny there, and like, oh yeah, but the real thread was like it carried meaning, like they meant it, like if so.
Yeah. And I just want to pause and veer 1 minute. And this is to your mindset, because I would applaud you as a health and wellness person going to the gym.
Yeah.
Okay. That's the absolute best thing that you could possibly
I do that religiously. It's part of who I am. And it just puts me in a much better mental state to focus.
Exactly.
The dopamine effect and all of that, and clears the head, and you just feel it grounds me. So I knew that I was under a lot of stress. So that morning, to get rid of it and to kind of like level the playing field for myself, that's what I chose to do.
And did you do anything else to kind of, I imagine with Steadicam, and I'm not the operator here, but you need a laser Zen focus to do your job.
Right.
Very much like a firefighter in a burning building.
Yeah.
Very similar, right?
Yeah.
You can't be my God.
No, you have to be able to, process the stress and anxiety.
Yes.
And like and everybody is the questions always asked on the bigger movies like that, or with Spielberg, how was it? Was it great? And the answer is always, it's a lot of hard work. It's great at moments, but what we say, you're good when you're good, but when you're bad, you're bad.
Yes.
And you have to be able to take that, because it's just the circumstances of working at such a high level. And certain people, I found that It's how you respond to that stress or getting nervous or whatever. Some people respond to it. Others say, no, it's not for me. I don't want to be in that kind of, environment. It's just very,
And I
it can be very taxing,
yes, and I
but
think that there's little margin for error because
right.
there's so much pressure, so
Yeah.
much stress, such high talent,
Right.
such a crazy schedule
Yes.
that there's just not a lot of margin for error. So mentally,
Right.
what is the game that you play, George, or how do you see that yourself to set you up for success? Because this is so important.
Yeah. I remember that first morning, I knew it was coming, and I'm there to do Steadicam, and they're gonna say, Steadicam, let's go. And it was a kind of, and it was a difficult shot going down the hallway, and Tom Hanks is being interviewed there in customs, and I had to go and make choices on my own about where to go in the scene, and going from office door through each office door, looking, coming out, and tracking laterally. So I had to tell the story as I was doing it, not just a simple walk and talk or something. And all that was like, they basically were saying, they were like looking at like what I could do, and I knew it. So it's like saying, okay, and so for me to get prepared that morning, and I still do it, I say, well, I'm going to engage and I'm ready to do it. And I have to tell myself I have the confidence to do it, and I have to like relax and just get into that moment and not let everything else, get into my brain. Like, I try to displace that. And what I do try to do is I also rehearse it in my head, and I walk through it before I put the rig on. I've walked through it in my head. So I say, okay, it's going to be like this. It's going to be like that. It's going to be like that. Telling my body and my muscle memory where I want it to be.
Oh, wow. That's very interesting.
Yeah, yeah.
I love that. So it's a combination of what I'm hearing of intuition and going with your instinct, because at the end of the day for Steadicam, especially if you're storytelling, it's instinct.
Right.
You're relying on your storytelling instinct
Yes.
as the test, right?
It really is.
This was the test for you. And then it's also the pre-visualization, like an athlete,
Right.
where you're taking your body through the moves of this test, so that when you actually do it, you do it so much more smoothly. That's because you've envisioned it and you've almost felt it. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah,
so
and
true.
I feel that just from Steadicam operators in general, the instincts, because the technological stuff of getting it level and moving it and all that stuff, that's one thing.
Yeah.
But your instincts is what I'm hiring.
Right.
It's your instincts to, when the actor does something different, you go to the place that I would want to have gone.
That's right.
We're totally in sync.
You have to be,
as operator and director of photography.
That's right.
And I just remember so many times you and I worked together, your instincts were so spot on. And I'll even remember back to Drumline when, when Nick Cannon was doing his drumming there,
right.
and all of a sudden you were wrapping around, and then you just started dropping down, and on the drop down, you saw that confidence build in him.
Sure.
And then remember when he broke out and started just riffing, and everyone's like, what is going on here?
Right.
But you gave that power of that performance by dropping down and wrapping around, and that just cemented that moment,
it did.
that emotion that he was
very
going
powerful.
through, right? So it's like that kind of instinct and everything is what I'm always looking for.
Sure.
And it's something that you can see on a reel as well too. But mainly it's just like Janus did. He put you in the hot seat. He saw your instincts right away, and bam, we were ready to go.
It's very true.
And you were. He was like seeing your skill set and knew you had it. And how many movies have you done with them? Is
like five or six now. Yeah.
Wow. So just to go back, because we all need an ending to day one. I think at least.
Okay. Yeah. So the ending. Yeah. So the ending. So. Let me figure that out, the ending. So when I started that shot, I told myself, I said, I've done this before, and I'm just going to pretend I'm doing it before. I'm not going to get all wound up with this, working with Steven watching and Janusz and everyone. I said, I'll forget about that. I'm just going to do what I know how to do. And it's going to be okay. It's either going to work or it isn't. And then we did another shot where they said, George, put the Steadicam on and come over here. And Zoe Saldana was behind the desk. Okay, frame that up, stand there. Okay. And I just went, keep holding it. Good. They're back there like, what? What? I don't know. What? Is there a camera problem? What? Hold it. And then, okay, good. Put it down. You're all right. So what they were doing was to see if I could lock the camera off enough so it wasn't floating and drifting all over the place. So I got through that test. So then a couple of days later, I'm over there by the monitors with Steven, and now the pressure's off a little bit, and I'm more relaxed. And he goes, George, come over here. And I go, hello, hi, Steven. He goes, I just want to say, you're doing so well, and I just want to apologize for that morning and meeting you and Janusz. I didn't know. He goes, I didn't know what to say, and Janusz set you up, and I know you felt really uncomfortable, but you're doing okay. This is great. He said, I'm happy to have you here, and it was a game changer for me.
Oh,
Yeah, he was so generous like that. He goes, yeah, that was embarrassing for you, I know, and I felt for you standing there like, oh, well, yeah, And he goes, but I've seen I saw the shot that we did that first day, and I really liked it. So
Oh, that's
it was a great relief for me, and so that's how I finished up in that first couple of days there, and then it led to other things. And between Steven and Janusz, they've been so effusively just generous with teaching me and having me a part of that team, and I just beyond of the best film making experience of my life probably with those guys. Yeah.
oh wow.
That's
awesome.
That's amazing. So you've done a variety of features.
Yes.
Other than that experience,
Yeah.
do you want to talk a little bit more to your feature film work? Because I know that you've also done television as well.
Right. Yeah.
And so I would love to hear about features versus TV and
Okay.
kind of how that's different
Mm-hmm.
from Steadicam, from an operator perspective, from the
Okay.
way that you set yourself up. And there may not be, but I think it's interesting to hear from your
Yeah.
your
So
perspective.
yeah, I mean, all movies feature wise, they're all different, and so you have to put yourself into like what the film is. It's distinctively different from everything else that I've done at that time. Like if it's an Avengers movie, or it's a dramatic narrative, or it's like an Oblivion, heavy sci-fi effects driven, but super just buttoned down is the lineage with Joe Kosinski and how he does things. What the camera's seeing. It's a complete different experience, but. So I kind of put myself in the position of learning what the language is going to be for the movie with the director and the DP, and how that integrates into the storytelling with the camera and what tools we're using to do that, I guess. And I think with a feature, you have a little bit more luxury to explore that and to define that versus television, where the execution becomes like so much a part of what you're doing. Meaning making the day and being very consistent.
Yes.
And sometimes, as Shane knows, TV can be more demanding because you have to be consistent at all times. And in a feature, you can afford to say, wait, this isn't working. Let's kind of redo it maybe in a way, or reblock it, or make adjustments, or have maybe more than a few takes to really kind of figure it out at rehearsals. And in television, sometimes you don't have that luxury. And you really kind of have to, it really shows what you're made of when you have to make it up as you're going. And like Shane said, the instincts and all that, and the storytelling becomes vital because, you have, very few chances to get it, most of the time. Yeah.
Wow.
The coverage portions of things. Yeah.
Yeah. And usually the page count on a feature film is 2.5 to 3
2.5 pages. Right.
But on a TV series, it's 6 to 8 pages a day.
Yeah. Right.
So you're really having to crank through it.
Yeah. No.
And for you with different directors, because I know TV, a lot of times you have a lot of different directors.
Yes.
Possibly per episode, they're changing, right? So how are you, or is the Steadicam person kind of part of the consistency that they're looking for, where they would keep somebody on, or you also would do episodic, just like the director, where you might be on for the pilot and a few episodes, or?
I've done both, but I think they prefer to have somebody there because the operators and the whole camera department and the whether it's one DP or two,
Mhm.
they with the showrunner they define the look of the show, and they want to keep that consistent, and they're so vital to making the show what it is. The
Okay.
directors come in and work with the actors, and yes, they have their point of view about the blocking and about the coverage, but the painting has been defined, and so you kind of have to go with what that what those details are, and to keep that lineage, so the show has the look of the show, the feeling of the show, the tonality, what people are expecting.
Because a lot of Steadicam operators ended up on TV series, ended up directing too.
Yes, that's right.
Right?
Yeah.
Guy B was one
He's-
that
yeah,
was on
exactly.
ER.
That's right.
Charles Pappert ended up directing off
Sure.
of Steadicam too.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of
Yeah.
that happened.
Yeah, because you have to work so fast, they leave the operator to actually, you determining the blocking a lot of times. The director will have a point of view in saying this, and then you say, well, okay, we do it like this, or I recommend this, or how do you feel like that? And then you take over with the blocking because it then alleviates the director of photography having to
Mhm.
spend so much time when the lighting has to be executed and so responsibly, fast. Yeah, and so you learn a lot from that experience as far as blocking and storytelling. Yeah,
Fascinating.
yeah, it's a really good place to come from.
Yes. So speaking of lighting, and I love this because I know that operating obviously has been such a huge part of your career, but you have transitioned
I have.
into cinematography now, which
Yes.
is so exciting.
Yeah.
And so how have you done that, and how have you taught yourself more, or maybe you were always amazing with lighting? I'm just
No, I really wasn't amazing with lighting. I had to learn it, but I absorbed it all working with all these notable DPs. It was always a passion of mine, because I still shoot and I have a background in stills. So it was always something that I aspired to, but I got really good at, operating.
Mhm.
Now I tell people I'm like the 1,000-year seed pod. I finally opened and bloomed. I've been doing this for so long, and they said now I have a bloom of about 5 years, and then it's over.
No,
No,
way,
but it's a
George.
joke. But they're like, it's about time, this guy. So, like, Jesus, really? Yeah. But yeah, so so I got lucky when I was working with Janusz. I started, I had the good fortune of being able to shoot a lot of, inserts, and I learned from that, and kind of cut my teeth doing a lot of inserts, like a lot of the notable inserts on Indiana Jones. Crystal Skull, the one that people don't really like.
Yeah,
You say
yeah.
that's the worst one ever. I go, that was me.
Yeah.
But like when the Ark of the Covenant, spills open and you see it, that was one of my shots. Or the metallic balls flying through the air to the sarcophagus, and the knife being thrown in that tree trunk. I did that for 2 days, probably 100 takes of that knife going fritink, fritink, and Steven saying, "No, do another one." I said I've done it 100 times. Do 100 more. Right? We're going to get something super cool. So I started with doing a lot of inserts and things, and then eventually tried to expand my base of trying to shoot things and doing some second units here and there. So it was in 2022. I finally made the choice to re-rate and move up with Paul Cameron on the Paramount show Lioness,
Right.
the Taylor Sheridan produced project.
Yes.
Right. And
Yeah.
wasn't Nicole Hirsch-Whitaker on that as well?
She was. Nicole was there, and Eric Koretz
Right.
Okay.
and Paul. And so Paul ended up, he directed a couple of the episodes. So I came in to shoot second unit with Jeff Dashnall. He was the second unit director, and I've been working with Jeff quite a bit. He's been very, good to me. We did all the second unit on Godless together.
Oh, I love that.
Oh, that's
series.
Yeah.
That's
That
a
was
great
all.
show.
All that
Yeah.
stuff was ours. So Paul brought me in. He didn't know who I was, and I once again I know
Really?
Paul. Well, he knew my name, but we'd never worked together.
Yeah, gotcha,
they know
okay.
you, like, oh, George, I know of you. I'm like, oh, okay, that's the start. But once again, it's Paul Cameron. It's like working with Shane or any notable people who have a legacy resume, and you're like, oh my God, yeah. Now what do I do? because
Yeah.
now I have to light stuff. I can't hide behind the Steadicam or said, oh, yeah, I got that. Now I'm going to light it and they're going to look at it. And I'm like, oh, Jesus. So, but it worked out. But it worked out. Now, I have a great story about that. So we're shooting in Baltimore, and I am officially moved up, and I'm the second unit DP, and I have my office, and I'd never had an office. And I'm like, well, this is great. I get to go in here and like do stuff and then deal with, production managers who won't give me what I want, and I'm learning all that. And I said, no, you have to use all locals. And I'm like, there isn't anyone. Yeah, they are. Look at their resumes. Well, where that's leading.
Yeah.
But great people and it all worked out. But budgets and schedule changes, and I was like totally overwhelmed. I said, this is all new to me. It was a whole thing. I was out of my comfort zone. So they say, okay, the first shot is going to be the second unit is up, but we've changed the schedule. Go over from the stages, George, where you're prepping. Find a location for Liza de Oliveira. She's going to be walking 50 yards through the forest. She's going to come to a tree and then go down and spend the night there. That's what I had to light. And I'm like, whoa, great. Night work. I've never done it. The crew, I don't know. These are your guys. These are your equipment. All the trucks leave the studio. We find this location, and they said, you got to be ready by 8 o'clock. And I'm like, oh, shit. Now what do I do? No, I'm really, okay. So I just, once again, it came down to instincts. Started taking lights off the truck, telling them where they go, looking at it, saying, this doesn't look good. This looks bad. Bad, George. Okay, move that. Not in a bad way, but take that down, put that over there, move that. So I worked my way through it, like learning from all the DPs I'd been around. And when it was done, I said, okay, there it is. Paul and John Hillcoat, the showrunner and the main director, were on their way over with Liza to do the shot. And They said, are you ready? And I said, I am ready. Lie. No, I was ready. So I said, Paul's either going to show up, and he's going to either look at the lighting and say, it's okay, or say, stop, take it all down. And I'd be back at the hotel that night, packing my bags and, saying, good morning. Hi, take me to the airport. Yeah, because I was an unknown commodity to Paul and John, and John was going to direct it. And Paul, being how he is, he's was so good to me. I learned from this man, like I learned from Shane and others and Janusz. I mean, it was such a good experience for me. And he took care of me, and a big fan of his work. So I got really lucky. And he walked over and he looked at it, and he looked around and looked at the monitor, and then took his time. And then I'm waiting, and I'm like just standing over there, like, George. And I came over. Yes, he goes, looks good. I like it. Let's go. And then John stepped in and directed it, and there I go.
That is so great. So
yeah.
I just want to go back to the line of, does anybody really think that they're ready? Because you never would have thought.
No, I never would have thought I'd be ready. I thought, okay, I'm going to be on stage. What I wanted to do, my whole initial thing was, okay, I'm going to be on stage. I have frame grabs. We have ability to pre-light it. And then I can follow the directions, like, look what Shane did. I'm going to emulate that, and then he's going to look at it, or I can send it over, and, you get feedback, and I can work through that. And it totally blew up. My whole game plan got blown, just like, boom. They said, no, forget that. You're going to go over there and light this night shot. And I'm like, it couldn't be worse for me. Night shot, my first, no.
Because that separates the men from the boys,
oh,
right
of course,
there.
Yes, we've done it together.
Time.
I've watched you do it. I mean, it's hugely, for me, it was hugely complicated. She's walking like 50 yards night, and then she's got to go underneath a tree. And then, so Paul was nice enough to say, okay, we're shooting part of it by this a park where there's a baseball diamond, the other side of it, the A side. And you can have a sodium vapor source, which saved my ass. So I could say, oh, I can have an edge light. Oh, not just trying to make moonlight. Like George's version of moonlight is shit. That's your moonlight? Okay. Right. Now this is moonlight. That didn't happen, but I got lucky with that sodium vapor source. But the point of it is, I wasn't ready.
And I
was not ready.
And I think that being uncomfortable, out of your comfort zone, just knowing that you gave it your best.
I gave it my best. I did. I said, well, to me, it looks like something that I could say I'm comfortable with it, because I think as you mature and you grow into the industry, you know when something is not working. I know from all my years with Shane, he knows when a shot's not working. He's the first person to say, hey, I have to make an adjustment here, or the lighting is not to his liking. And and sometimes you get your hands tied and you're stuck with it. But everyone know your instincts at that point, once again, kick in and you say, no, it doesn't look right. It doesn't look good. And I'm my own worst critic. And I think that's really helped me. Like a lot of people, I've never walk away saying, that work was so good and I'm
No,
so
I always
great.
go down the rabbit hole of like what I should have done.
Correct.
The fill was just a little too strong.
Yeah.
I should have been more ballsy.
Right.
You always, and I think that's very important
It
to
is.
do.
Oh, yeah.
It does beat you up,
Oh,
but it
absolutely.
is the way to create.
It is.
You have to constantly be refining yourself. Every night on my drive home, I just go through systematically what worked and what didn't work,
right.
and what I should have done.
Yes.
The coulda, woulda, shoulda.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And it's the hindsight that you never get back either.
You never get
unless
that
all
back.
of a sudden they say, all right, we didn't. I'll never forget on Mr. 3000, the first day we shot, we went back and shot it all over again because Charles Stone didn't think that Bernie was on his game, and he didn't think the camera work was on. He didn't think anything was on its game, and it was that kind of first day kind of jitters. And we went back, and they actually recast the workout buddy to start the thing, and it worked out so much better.
Right.
That they were able to recast, because I think a lot of the problem was actually the first person that was working aside Bernie that was throwing it out of sync, let's say.
Sure.
But whatever the case is, I was able to have a do-over.
God. Yeah, a do-over.
Which you get very few of those in this business.
I've got like 3.
Yeah, exactly.
That's it. In 30 years. Yeah, a mulligan. Yeah, watch. Don't look over there. I'm moving it. Yeah. But no, you're really never. I wasn't ready, but but the mistakes I've made, I said I'll never I never do that again. I mean,
yeah.
What are some of your biggest mistakes, George? Because I think that this is really important to share with people.
Yeah.
To be vulnerable, and we are very transparent about mistakes, like that we've made in leadership, or that we wish things that we wished we could have done differently.
Oh.
And I wonder if there's something where and I don't want to put you on the spot with this, but I think it's so important where maybe it's a leadership issue, or just some sort of mistake that you made where you thought, wow, okay, I now understand in hindsight, because I think everybody has the best of intentions, right?
Yeah.
But sometimes they're just traps that you don't even think about.
Right. I think for me, like, I guess what I've learned, I think as I'll talk about, the operator first and then the cinematographer. But from the operator, I've learned that, I got much better at speaking up and trying to find out if something wasn't working out and the relationship is not going well with the director. Usually the DP thing is pretty solid, you would hope, but sometimes even there. And it's about like coming to a common ground. And if there's a understanding that's not happening, or something that's not being, done to people's, artistic, liking, that I talk about it instead of just saying, oh, and getting mad about it, or I'll just do it, or I hate doing that. It's about coming to an understanding. And I become much more vocal, but in a good way of meeting and like getting to know people in a way which is really, effective, but knowing each other as an artist, because it's all these the artistry of combining all these, highly visual people, storytellers, authors of their work, creators. And sometimes things can get muddied, and they're thinking a certain way, but you don't understand that, or they can't, express that in a way that you are able to take as like, oh, I totally get what you're saying when I don't. So I don't pretend anymore and say, oh yeah, I got you. I like that. And then you see that you're not delivering. So it's something I've had to learn, but I think the more you talk about it, you discuss it. I think the collaboration is so important on that.
And how do you do that? How do you do you do it with your DP?
I mean, I guess so. Some directors, like for instance, with Spielberg, Steven is so good at the blocking that he blocks it, and then he leaves it up to myself and Mitch Dubin, who's been there forever, who's a phenomenal operator. We all know and love Mitch. And he really taught me a lot, actually, Mitch, about operating. I mean, how he does it. But so Steven leaves the execution up to us. He never gets in the way of that. But his blocking is so precise that you don't need to interpret it and say, well, what if we go here or there or change it? You can suggest something, but not too often. He knows what he wants. But what he does do very well as a director, he leaves it up to the operators to figure out how to do it. They'll never, and they never get in the way of that. If we say we have to, knock down that wall and make something and then do that and, fly in, I'm going to fly in on a cable and then come off and then take the Steadicam, whatever, crazy stuff. Is it going to work? Yeah, good, then do it. And they don't, muddy that. But other directors, they need to be guided more. Say, well, what would you do? Or how do you think it would be? Or what can we do here? So you have to come to that common ground about like what your job responsibility is to that person. Whether it's the DP saying, I prefer to do shots like this because of the lighting. And you say, okay, I'll remember that. This is what you need. Or the director saying, I need help here, or I'd like you to block it, which does happen. I want to work with the actor solely, and I want you to take over and figure out, good frames and coverage. So
I love that so much because I think it's really figuring out the roles and responsibilities based on with excellent communication.
Yes.
So that you're not guessing, you're not tripping over each other, you're not ticking off a director because you're actually, in the way of whatever they're trying to do.
Yeah, whatever they're trying to get.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. You have to do it kind of seamlessly. And the more that you come to that understanding as, the better off you'll be. The more secure your position is, you have to show them that you, like an operator, that, you are of value and you're really delivering something. You're not just there, putting good things within the frame or keeping the actors within the frame. There's so much more, to it than that.
Yeah, and I also find that, with the Steadicam, you become the visual voice for the
That's
director
right. Oh, yeah.
a lot of the time because so many more shots, they want to be moving and all that stuff. So the interaction and the one-on-one is so much more prevalent.
Yeah.
Like a lot of times I find that on movies, whether it was you or Roberto or whoever was my Steadicam operator, Mick G was coming directly to you to talk about the shot.
Yes.
He was just like Michael Mann is going to Roberto to discuss
That's
it.
right.
It's very, that relationship is very tight.
It's very tight.
And I kind of, try to listen in as much as possible. And when I hear where he or she wants to take you, I'm also thinking about the light and how that's going to impact that. So how can I stay ahead of it if we're going to change it up in any way?
Right. That's exactly what Steven is about. It becomes the two of us doing some of the best shots I've ever done. It's just the two of us looking at it and blocking it, and I'll have a suggestion or say, let me show you something. Or, if I say, can I have one more? I want to fix something. And he'll say, are you sure? Okay, but you better fix it if you do it again. You don't go, oh, well, I didn't fix it. Yeah, you better fix one more. Okay, but are you going to fix it? Yeah, I'm going to fix it. You'll see. And then you did fix it. But it is that relationship and it evolves. And I'm the first person to say, hey, I never get locked into anything. I think that's something that people need to, you go with your instincts, but never get fixated and locked into some shot or some way of doing it because someone's going to say, wait, I've noticed something, and why don't you go this way to that way? And you go, whoa, great idea, even better. Or I discover I'm doing this shot, and halfway through I go, oh, this part is shit, and I'm going to fix it later when this is all over because it's going to be even better. And I remember that catalog and say, cut, go back and say, okay, wait a minute, let's do another one. And I know what I'm going to fix, and I fix it. It's a moment of discovery that you should never let go of and just walk away from it. I think you really have to hold that true to being the author of your work, saying, I can make this thing better.
So, George, what I'm hearing you saying, correct me if I'm wrong on this, because it's so fascinating to me. So it's flexibility, curiosity,
yes,
which I think is your greatest superpower. And I say this over and over and over again, but being flexible and curious and staying out of the ego so that this brilliant team, because filmmaking is
it is
a team sport.
Absolutely.
And I think ego gets in the way of everything.
I totally agree, Lydia. It really does. Yeah.
And so it's here we are, and here's this incredible group of talent assembled.
Right.
And we're going to do, everybody's going to be in their own genius zone and do their part to deliver something really extraordinary.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah. The whole ego thing is, we get consumed by that, I think, and everybody has an ego, or you wouldn't kind of be where you are, I guess. And it's important, and you have to recognize that. But in the communal space of filmmaking, there's times when it's necessary after it's all over, and they say, "I did that. That was me. Yeah." And everybody's like, "Oh yeah, you're the guy. Yes, I am the guy." Right? But when you're doing it, you don't show up as the guy. That's always a problem.
Yes.
The guy is now in the room, and like, I'll show you how to do it, or we did it like this, or they do it like that. We don't do it like that, or I don't do it like that. There's no room for that. It's a total fail. So, and you're so much more evolved as an artisan when you don't have the ego at the moment. Now, you can tell yourself when I'm doing something, I said, I'm pretty damn good. I'm really, whoa, I'm on my game today. I did something great to myself.
Yes.
Like, well, okay, are you good with it? Yes. Inner self says, yeah, you're pretty damn good today. But then other days you're bad. But I keep that within here.
Right.
But having the ego thing is, you have to let go of it. Now, one of my ego stories was letting go of egos and just talking was at the end of Terminal, okay? I had completed the movie. We were in Mirabel, Canada. We were doing the final airport scene. The movie, we wrap. It was a big cathartic moment. We're in the control room set, and I've just spent, the last 4 months with Steven talking, doing stuff. And I finally said, okay, George, now you're going to go over there. I have to talk to him one-on-one because when it was all over, I said, I'm having an out-of-body experience, really? And I said, I'm just going to go over there and tell him this, right? And he's waiting and hugging, and everyone's like, and Steven, and he's, oh, George. And we hug, and I said, okay, now I'm going to tell you something. Don't think it's weird, but I have to let you know. He goes, well, what is that? And I said, well, you could never have imagined, and this is where I project how the film business is and my place in life. I said, in 1975, when I was a young dumb surfer in Ventura, at the Ventura Theater on Main Street, watching Jaws, sitting there with all my surf bros going, dude, that shark, it's crazy. Hey, we're afraid to go in the water now. This shit's going to happen. You're going to get eaten tomorrow. I'm like, yeah, and they're out there. Yeah, oh God, we all freaked out. Loved the movie, but we're scared just out of our minds. We didn't surf for like weeks. He said, nope, there's a shark. I see it right there, right, Ventura, because that's where I grew up. So I said, so Steven, I saw the movie, and you can't imagine now me talking to you, going to film school, okay, and now I'm on your set, and I studied you in school, watched your movies, and now I'm working with you, and you're talking to me. And I said, you can't imagine how that is for me right now. And he goes, no, but wait, George, you tell me that you and your surf buddies loved that movie and it really scared the hell out of you and you thought it was like amazing? And I go, yeah. And he goes, that's the best shit I've ever heard. Yeah. But I spoke to him just like I said, I'm going to talk to the man and just tell him what so for me, still to this day, connecting all those dots, it was something I like. How did that even happen?
I had that moment with him on Need for Speed where I went to him and I said, Close Encounters of the Third Kind is why I became a cinematographer and why I wanted to be a storyteller.
Yeah.
Because I was just blown away with the visuals in that film.
Yes. Oh my God.
Strong, bold choices.
Just the choices are
made. It was just wow.
It's wow. Yeah. No. And I had that wow moment. So I had to express it. I said, I still think about it, like, how did I even get from there to there? Watching that movie, I never could have imagined if someone had said, okay, flash forward now 20 years and you're going to be working with this guy. And I'd be like, no, I'm not. How's that even going to be? I wasn't even I wasn't even a filmmaker back then. I was just a film goer.
Right.
What a special, and I think when you share with people how they've impacted your lives.
Oh, yeah.
It's one of those moments in time that is so extraordinary. And I think it's something that's really important for people to do more and more often.
Oh, yeah.
To let people know how they've shaped you.
Oh, yeah. No, I totally believe in that. I mean, I'll tell anyone, hey, I want to learn this and that, or Steadicam. I said, I'll teach you whatever you need. We'll exchange info and I'll get back to you, and I do it. I mean it. I don't, just talk the game. I said, if you want to learn it, I think that's awesome. Or you have questions, or you want to improve, or how did you do it, or how do you go about anything? I'm the first person to share that, because I think the communication is everything. Sometimes we're afraid to talk, or like, oh, that's so-and-so, and I might sound like a, crazy person, or like ask a dumb question, like what? But most of the times people they're, for everything that we do, it's a luxury because people are really want to hear that, and they're willing to share.
And that's what we love about you, George. You're so authentic, and you're so real, and you're so gifted in what you do. And so I want to keep the questions coming.
Oh, yeah.
So
keep going. Yeah.
Technology.
Okay.
How do you deal with it? How do you keep up with it?
Yeah.
How do you learn everything that you need to know? It's daunting.
Yeah, it is. So I think you have to really apply yourself at certain times to really learn it. And I think you have to, the way the business changes, I think, like, especially as a cinematographer, you really have to put your head around that, not going down to the point where it's taking away from your, the artistry of what you're doing, right? But the hands-on and the use of those tools, I mean, I think it's vital. That's what I've learned. I'm still a novice when it comes to, everything about what a camera is capable of, like someone like Shane, who's been doing it, 3 or 4 times as long as I ever have as a DP. I mean, he was doing it when, I was still trying to figure out, which end of the Steadicam is up and down. And all those, so people like that, I learned from that, because, they've evolved. So that's where I'm trying to catch up now, is to pay attention to all the technology. But I know that, it improves my space as a cinematographer because it gives me more confidence. I'm not just trying to make it till you fake it till you make it.
Yeah.
And if you don't know it, guys do things and you say, how did they do that? And then you find out and you're like, whoa, brilliant. I had to discover that and, learn that on my own, but then I will, use it, or I can interpret that when, I need to. But
one of the things that I have always gotten, and I'm finally learning my lesson. Oh my God. It always takes me years. I feel like, what is going on here? But I thought I had to be able to solve all problems.
Yes. Okay.
Only myself. I had to figure out what the grip rig was. If it wasn't working right, I had to internalize, solve those problems.
Yeah.
And then one day I just said, well, if I got to solve all the problems, why the hell am I hiring all these people that are actually doing the jobs that help solve the problems?
Why are they here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why don't we just include them in the conversation so it's not all on me?
Right.
And I feel that I take so much stress because I have always felt like I need to be the answer person.
Right.
And now I'm being much more curious.
Yep.
And I'll say, what is the best way to do this? With the VFX, I'm like, do you need a blue screen? Is that something we really need? Or can you, it's like, oh no, we don't need that. We're going to be fine. You don't need to worry about that. And, it's going to be really hard for me to balance the screen with all the lighting. Oh, don't worry. It's like asking those questions instead of beating yourself up and saying, oh my God, I got to have that screen dialed in exactly, or they're going to come back and say they couldn't, pull the mat or whatever, so
it's on you.
It's like, and like this last job, I was like, okay, I just said to the key grip, I'm like, I want 80 feet of truss. I want it suspended over the tent, and I have 9 18K Vulcans on it. That's all I said. I didn't say it had to be done on a construction crane. And where usually I would say, okay, I think we're going to need 110 foot, 110 ton construction crane. You're probably going to need a bridle up there and create a box truss to then hang the thing down.
Yeah.
I just took myself out of that.
Yeah.
Because I think like knowing enough knowledge can be dangerous.
Right.
And I feel that I'm really trying to be much more, and Roberto beats me up on this all the time
Okay,
because
good.
he's like, Shane, will you stop micromanaging the team? Just let them do their job. And I'm like, yes, but I just want, no, you just don't do anything.
You don't, yeah.
You
Now,
know?
when you throw the ball, you know when to release it, right? No, let me tell you again. Like, no, when I have the ball, I know what to do. Sit down, watch me throw the ball. Yeah, but no, yeah.
But I do like coming from a perspective of not also, like I remember the first time that you and I worked and I said, all right, let's put the 150 mil on. And that was back then, that was like Steadicam 150.
Yes.
You know, I mean, that's like a whole.
Yes.
Right?
That was all
I
there
remember
was.
you looking at me like, what the hell?
Yeah, there was no fly-by-wire back then. That was all hand flying. And I went, what?
You know,
put the 150 on and like.
It's like when I turned to Zuccherini on Into the Blue and said, all right, we're doing 100 mils underwater. And he's like, what?
Yeah, what? Yeah. I said, are you talking to me, Shane, about the 150? Is that someone about 150? No, George, that's you on the stage.
But I was like, you know, I kind of like was like, well, why not 100?
Yeah.
And he's like, well, it's, you know, and I know there's magnification. I've studied all the stuff with it, but I've noticed that no one does that underwater.
Right.
So why not? Let's try it.
You're brilliant at taking chances. And, you know, you're using the technology, but you don't let it get in the way.
Right.
And I think that's like, for me, the techno babble thing, Steadicam can be a big part of that. You get so immersed into the whole thing, wearing it and all these, you know, stuff. But it's like, even at working as a cinematographer, you have to get the tools, but they can't overwhelm you. You don't fall victim to the technology. Because at the end of it, it's still the storytelling.
Yeah.
You know, and it's what's in front of the camera. And yes, it's great to use those tools to get there, but it's not the end all. Like chasing, you know, we need the newest camera, we need the newest sensor, the newest lights. They all have a place, and they find that. But for me, it doesn't qualify. It's not the beginning of everything. You know, it's necessary, and we have to embrace it. And so I feel more comfortable if I know it. But it's also, I like to discover new things. I don't know everything.
Right.
You know, I by no means, you know, forget it. I'm the first person to admit it. You know, yeah.
Yeah, that's so great, George. You have worked like crazy, sometimes up to 3 projects a year.
Right. Yes.
How do you do that?
Yeah. How's that balancing act?
Well, there's a trade-off. Let's put it that way. You know, I mean, it affords me the luxury of just like getting lost in your work because it's defined who I am to a certain point. That the strikes really brought me to a point of reflection about how much I miss it, but how much that when I wasn't able to do it, it caused me some, you know, like I got depressed and, you know, wrangled with things like what's happening. It was a inflection point in my life that I'm now working on and changing, but it really had a deep impact on me. But working like that, I mean, you know, it's really demanding. It was hard on the family life. You know, my daughter would come with me pretty much everywhere that I would go. I would try to really make that, you know, a priority, or having that time. So she had an amazing upbringing, traveling the world on all these different, you know, projects, but a lot of time away from her. But you know, she turned out great. All that is, you know, blessings. But delving into that though, you become so regimented. So it's focusing on the job. It's taking care of my physical health. You know, it's like in the gym every morning, I have a routine that I adhere to religiously. And so I know that I'm prepared for the day's work. But it's extremely demanding. You know, when it's all over, I go to myself like, how did I even do that or get by with it? But for me, it's finding equilibrium, because certain days are harder than others. But the biggest takeaway is like on the weekends, I rest, I regenerate, I eat well. I don't go to bars. I don't, you know, partying, hanging out, or crazy hours. You know, I take it very seriously doing what I do, because it's a luxury for me to be doing it. And I put a lot of emphasis on that. I embrace it, and I'm proud of what I do. But I want to deliver, you know, awesome work all the time. And I don't want my life choices to get in the way and ruin that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's such a big, you hit so much there from mental health and wellness. But I think, so you said working out, eating healthy, rejuvenation time, and finding your equilibrium.
Yeah.
So here's the question. When you find your equilibrium is off, how do you recalibrate that?
Well, I'm a good kind of, listener of what's happening around me, and I try to process that in a productive way. And then if I listen to myself, I say, well, it's time to read something or, find something that's going to relax my mind, and then say, okay, I know, I'm not getting enough sleep. So I'll try to fix that, or, I'm not eating enough, or this or that. Or if I'm stressed out at work about something, I say, okay, something's happening here which is affecting me, and I need to kind of find out what that is. Either it's something that I'm doing, or this is the dynamics of this movie. The set is dysfunctional. So then I say, okay, I'm not going to get locked into that. But every day, so when there's a dysfunction like that, I say, okay, I'm going to put up boundaries, come to work, and deal with it. I just said, okay, I can't control it, but I got to deal with it.
And I think that's so great because you're not getting sucked in to the emotional roller coaster.
Oh, totally.
Or the toxicity or whatever's happening.
That's right. And making movies, any product, television, whatever, they can be very toxic, the environment. Some of the people that are there, you're like, oh my God, like this is not like a person I want to be around. And they can get very dysfunctional.
Yeah.
The stressors, and people process, and they're processing that, and they're putting it out in a way which is, not, conducive to a creative environment. Or then you get on shows that are like, like working with Shane, you'll say, wow, we can create and we can talk, and he's inspired, and it's, it's effusive, and people get on that, and you're like, yeah, this is great.
Yes.
You said, no, I'm really enjoying this, and you want to do more and better. And the others, you're like, what time are we wrapping? I mean, this piece of, God damn, you walk to the car, we're like, oh no, the dread.
Yeah.
And the next morning, the dread walking in, like, we're in, and you're like, oh, great, good. Well, this will be fun, because it does happen. Those toxic environments. I mean, you hear all those stories, and now that I've been doing it so long, I really try to look at people that, for me, are of quality.
Yes.
That's what I say. I want to work with quality people, and we all have our moments. No one's perfect. I have a bad day. Shane has a bad day. You have a bad day. We all have places in life where, okay, we need a little something extra special, or you're having a moment. But I look at the takeaway as good quality people will prove themselves time and time again, and you kind of know that. And I used to believe in, like, oh, well, the a-hole over there, genius, can be that way because he is that. You're working with super special number one, maestro of everything, and, you're on my movie set, and you're like, yeah, but you kind of a-hole. Well, then I learned that there's so many talented people that are brighter, better, just as good, and they're like amazing to be around.
Yes.
And they come with no ego, and they come with none of the other trappings of the whatever, that part of it. It's like crazy to see, but it's proven to me many times, like, for all of that, I don't buy into that anymore. It's like, well, you need to work on yourself, which is great. You're taking it out on us, but yes, you're good at what you do. I get it. I will give you anything you want to know. For this, what you're doing is great. But looking at yourself, step aside and go, everyone else around you is going like, oh, yeah. Yeah, they're talking, right. Yeah. Never again. That thing. Thank you very much. Yeah, very busy.
That's perfectly stated. And I think what I love the most about what you're saying is not let it impact your psyche, your soul.
No, you can't.
So let's talk about this past year, just really quickly, and the lack of control, because there was no control. You and I got into this a little bit before we started recording. And I think that this is so important because control is an illusion. And I think that people think that they have control with their work,
Right.
with so much of life feels out of control. But the one area that we feel like we kind of have control in is our work environment.
Right.
Right? We're talented, we show up, we put in the work, and we go home and we consistently get hired.
Yeah.
And I think what 2023 taught us was, wow, 3 strikes. And all of a sudden, people who really defined themselves so much through their work went into real mental health crises, a lot of depression.
Right.
How do you cope with it?
Right.
How do you cope with this, everything coming to a grinding halt
Right.
and not necessarily starting up as quickly as we would like?
Oh, sure.
So I think that this is something that so many filmmakers are
Oh my God, yeah.
feeling. And not only could you not do your job, right, which you really want to do, but then you were also being hit financially.
Oh, yes.
Because your nest egg was used up, the savings was used up.
Oh, right, yeah.
And how do you not get into fear and negativity and leaving the industry altogether? I think that's really my question.
Oh my God, yeah. So many questions there. Yeah, you're answering them for me. I mean, I was one of those people. No, but like you were getting back to, doing like 3 projects a year, I got used to that. I would always say, wow, people would say, why don't you stop, don't keep doing that. I said, I don't know, I can. I'm kind of, I guess it's not an addiction, but I love it. I like it. And there is part of that thing manifesting itself like, kind of addicted to it. I love it. And it was defining who I was. So when the strike happened, all that got taken away from me and I really had a tough time with it. Because like I was telling you earlier, it was like my domain that I had created that, once again, we're talking that I thought I had controlled was out of my control. It was controlled by those people over there. I had nothing to do with that. We're connected, yes, in a way, but I had no choice in the matter. And so as artists, and I know for a lot of creative people, when you don't have that outlet, and that's part of what makes you who you are, you live and breathe that, it defines your spirituality to a certain point. When that's taken away, you feel robbed of that semblance and that balance. So I had, many days of just frustration, like what happened to me? What did I do wrong? How could this be happening as a working adult, having the worst year I've ever had? Even before doing this, I said, what is going on? What did I do?
Yes.
Also, it's the not knowing.
The not knowing. Yeah, I had no idea. You can't, and it was.
You're like, every morning I'm going to the trades, and it's like, oh, the talks were, didn't go well. I'm like, oh my God.
Another one, another setback.
Yeah.
And like I was saying, I'm the first person to say, okay, if I'm not doing the job well, and people say, oh, that guy's terrible, or he's no good, or like I said, my own worst critic, I fall on my own sword. I said, if I make a mistake, I own it. That's one thing I people, it's helped me a lot. You have to own it. Yes. Own it to yourself and to others. Say, hey, I can't do it, or I did a bad job, or you got to own it, and you learn from that. But so I said, well, what have I done? And with the strikes and all that, I say, well, I hadn't really done anything, but I felt like it had been like I did something wrong. Like, what happened?
Yes.
I couldn't, it was hard to process for me. And in very, the wherewithal when you look at your finances, it's not great, because I sit there and realize, when the MPI sent out the Calm app that we were all supposed to look at and make us feel better on my phone.
You're absolutely right. I remember that.
When things are bad, go to the Calm app. So I said, point well taken. Watch this. I open up the Calm app, and then over here, I multitasked and went to my Schwab account and looked at my Schwab account, and then was like, oh, time to sell. Oh, and repeat after me. Be calm and relax and go, yes. Yeah, it didn't have a lot of effect because I had to get on the phone. Yeah, let's sell. Good. Why? I have to. The Calm app is telling me.
Not working.
Not working. Yeah. But yeah, so it was a stressor, the whole finance thing. Yeah. It's bad. It was bad for everyone. And when you're used to that, and it's a form of security, work for me is a form of security too.
Yes.
For a lot of us.
I completely agree. I mean, we love what we do.
That's
so
right.
much.
And, and it shows, when you're around people that really love it.
Yeah.
They're people love it. Other people are using it as for me, it was never a means to make money. I fell into this whole thing, I rediscovered myself, and then I still say, like, what am I doing? There's something about it that I loved,
Yes.
I loved being a firefighter, but I love this just as much in a different way, but I respect it. And that was the passion. So it's like, it's great to be paid like we are. And that's, vital, and to be paid well because you're really earning it. But it doesn't define me. It wasn't a money grab, or, look, I've got on this and more money and a bit more shit. And, it was always about, no, it's so cool to be creating things
And doing what you love.
and doing what you love. It's doing what you love. And when you can't do it, it was huge hardships.
Yes. And I just want to get back to what you think you learned to end this on a positive note.
Oh,
so
yeah,
that everybody,
Not on a downer.
Not on a downer.
No.
This is something that everybody relates to. And I personally took a huge loss last year as well.
Yeah, we all
and
did.
so
yeah.
everybody did.
Everybody did, yeah.
And so I think what I really want to share with people is how do you keep yourself in the headspace of momentum, of moving forward? What tools and techniques do you do for those dry spells, for the periods where there's zero control and we have 3 strikes and you know that you're just going to take a financial hit? How do you not obsess on that and let it eat you up?
Right. Well, my release was, like for a lot of people, I guess, but you find somewhere where you're going to feel better about where things are, so you don't obsess on it. So I started, keep taking care of my health, but spending a lot of time getting exercise.
Yes.
When I felt myself going into a dark place or whatever, that was really, it helped me through the rough spots.
Me as well.
Yeah.
I really took up, my son had just become a personal trainer, and
right. Yeah, we talked.
I wanted to invest in his start. So I was like, all right, Miles, where are you fitness training? Oh, Fitness 19. All right, I'll join the gym.
Yeah.
And then I'll sign up for personal training for you to get you started, and that became a mantra that I do, 3 days a week with him. And it's this awesome father and son bonding too, because we just talk about life, and while he's, working me out, some days he really just talks and we don't do much of a workout. And then there's other days where he just buries me.
Yeah.
Right. And I can, the next day, I'm just like the day when I was trying to get out of bed, he beat me up so much yesterday. I did 40 suicide runs in the gym.
God,
and I was like, what? I haven't done this since my college days of soccer, I was like, what? Suicide? But I woke out of bed this day and I was like, oh boy.
Yeah.
But it's like, it's so good. And he used that to get into personal training during the pandemic because he was losing his mind. It's like,
being isolated.
He was one of those people that graduated during the pandemic, high school.
Oh,
so
my God,
it's like, then college, there was nowhere to turn because everything was online. And, so he's been in this weird, post-pandemic, education thing. And he loved working out. His body is insane right now, where he's built it up to.
Yeah.
And people come in and they see him as a trainer. They want to learn from him.
Oh, yeah.
He's a perfect example of it.
Yeah.
So, but it was really good to, because the endorphins and the dopamine and everything.
Oh my God,
it's surging.
Vital. It would change me when I would, finish the workout. But I started reading more.
Nice.
Investing in that, looking at, just keeping up with, looking at more, movies. I caught up on a lot of things, but it's still every day became like I got into this like kind of weird way of thinking, like felt like the pandemic, but it wasn't.
Right.
And then everyone around you, I started reaching out to people and connecting to see how they were doing, and they were all doing the same thing. But without doing that, people would actually call me and they'd say, of all the people, you got to be working, or there's something. I like, no, there's zero. There's nothing happening. And that was like a point of where connecting to people, say we're all going through this together.
Yeah.
And I think the importance of community there.
Yeah, community.
And really sharing feelings and being real about where you're at and struggling. Because I think there's such shame around it. And as you pointed out before, and this is something that is very close to my heart, the mental health struggle, is that it's really important to let people to be real and to let people know that, hey, I can help you. I'm going through the same thing, or I'm here for you.
Oh, yeah.
To listen.
Right, yeah.
Because I read an article about one of the biggest health crises that we're facing is loneliness and how it's impacting everyone since the pandemic.
Mm-hmm. Well, speaking of, I guess, loneliness, because that became a big part of what we were all going through, and I experienced that directly like we all did, and not being able to have the avenue to connect with what we take so personally as being creators and authors of our work. I have the great fortune to work with a very talented director, Kelly Madison. And she took it upon herself to realize that, and we were able to shoot a small short film for a number of weeks during that time. And looking back on that, it really helped myself and everybody there to get reconnected again and do it. And it was a project that I think was really necessary at the time, and it put me in a much better place, reconnecting to actually making a really good project. It's about the isolation of social media, and it's like a combination of Castaway meets The Fly.
Oh, wow.
So it was very timely, dramatic narrative thriller, but it put me in a much better space, and I think that everybody there, we really enjoyed it and got a lot out of it. So we met as a group of filmmakers and were able to do it.
So great, George. What I was going to say is just having something positive to focus on.
Totally.
And to really become creatively inspired about.
That's right. We were able to do it again because we'd all been away from it for so long that it was like a shot in the arm.
Well, that's the thing. It's like people really have to understand that making a film is a team sport.
It really is.
It's a sport because what you do, when you don't do it for 4 to 5 months, you get rusty.
Oh, you do? Oh,
You
my God,
get
that's so true. You do
completely
get rusty.
You gotta,
oh, my God.
Pull the cobwebs off.
Yeah, oh,
I
God,
remember the electricians and grips and everything coming in from when we rebooted this series I was on in London. Everyone had not worked for 5 months over there.
Yeah.
And it was, you could see the speed was slow in the beginning.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden we
Right.
started to get, the first 3 or 4 days, it was clunky.
Yeah.
But then we found our rhythm again. And, you talk to them and you're like, I'm sorry, it's like I ran the power backwards. I
No, you're
handed
so
the
right.
stinger with the wrong end. It's like, it is something just like sports, those, they train for hours,
it is.
days on end, and it's repetitive.
No,
repetitive,
you
repetitive.
have to show up, and that's why you have to train for that. And like myself, and that's a very good point that you make. Like when I've been away from operating or Steadicam or whatever, and doing something else, or just in between jobs, and they say, "Well, when was the last time you were on the field?" And you're like, "Oh, that was last year." They go, "Oh, good, you're ready. Get out there." Like if I haven't done Steadicam, it's one of those things that's like an instrument. You better start practicing. You don't just show up at the concert and open the case up and go, and whoa, and what do I do? Yeah. So, but it's a very good point that you make. Yeah, I got, very rusty.
Yes.
Rusty.
Yeah.
Bad.
I felt it too. Just like,
and you got to knock it off.
Like questions you ask, the protocols, the etiquette, the day in and day out stuff. It's just, I remember, scanning. I'm constantly scanning to see what is the camera on the right ISO? Is it on the, because you're always doing
that. You have a checklist, of course. Oh, it's so easy to let it.
Checklist. And then when you don't do that, you're not looking at the frame as much. You're just like, you're enjoying that you're back to work and everything. I'm like, oh shit, he was on a 144 degree shutter when he should have been on a 180. I'll change that. It's like.
But work is good, isn't it? Yeah. Now I remember. Yeah, when you're in the middle of it and you're at the peak of that, and from project to project, you get so good at it.
Oh yeah.
Your mind gets so sharp. But and then when you have to put that away, it changes the dynamics of how you approach everything. And I totally agree. Yeah, it's knocking the rust off.
It's an energetic rhythm.
Yes.
Right?
Very good point.
I think of like
It is a rhythm.
synchronized swimmers.
Right.
Right? Because when everything is
true.
like a ballet dance on set, when
Yes.
it's working perfectly
That's
well.
right.
So
You feel so good.
You know how
so
it is at the end of
alive.
a movie. Everyone is just finally, you've all gotten there, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
And it's like you're there for a reason, and now you're able to play in the big game, and you've figured it all out, and everyone's going to excel. But it takes time to get there, and it's that experience, like saying, "Wow, that's where you kind of want to make it to the next one like that," because these people have all proven themselves,
Mhm.
and you know what's expected, and it's something very refreshing and comforting knowing that you have that team with you. Like, hey, yeah, I don't have to relearn it.
And I think it's also great to tell our members too. It's that you just don't give up.
No,
you
you don't
gotta
give up.
keep
No.
this. The craft of storytelling is such an amazing
Right.
experience.
It is.
I mean, I find like I can be a 5-year-old my whole life.
You're right. Oh yeah.
Right.
Isn't
And
it amazing?
that
Yeah.
energy and
Yes.
that calling, let's
Yes.
say,
Right.
is so intoxicating.
It is.
And I just want everyone to really say, take a look at your career and just say, if you're not where you want to be, just keep on pushing.
Keep on
because
pushing. You got to have that drive. You are what
Yes.
you are. And it's easy. I mean, I lost sight of that drive during the strikes. We got isolated and that drive was cut off. And I had many moments like saying, I'm over this. Why is this happening? And, but you have to push through it. But the drive was still there. Deep down inside, the drive is there. The flame is still there. And it's about, using that to your advantage. But you have to pay attention to it.
Yeah.
And if you're not happy with it, you have to, somehow change it. And it's a lot of work when people say, well, why don't you just do that or this? You say, well, do you want to try it? A lot of heavy lifting there. Like, oh, that's good. I'm available. Hire me for that. Well, not now, but eventually. Yeah. Your work now is, it'll get better. Good. But leave me alone.
Yeah.
But, but it takes a lot of that initiative, and initiative is hard.
Yeah.
It is.
Because we're all, being artists, we're all incredibly, incredibly sensitive.
Yes.
For everyone that walks around with the ego and whatever, you can take anyone and find their spot and just crush them.
Oh, yeah.
Like sensitively.
Absolutely.
Oh,
Yes.
We're all incredibly sensitive as artists. And so, I got was oversensitive to the whole thing of like, I lost who I was.
Yes.
I said, I'm used to doing this. That's what I did. And now it wasn't there. So I kind of said, well, now I have to reinvent. You have to wait it out. But I had to somehow tell myself, it is going to be okay. But I had moments of like, well, what am I going to do?
Yes.
Because I like Shane and I have talked coming up and I told you earlier, I'm a bootstrapper. Shane's the same way. When I met him, telling me those stories when he was the guy in the loading dock, and said, I'll shoot that for you. And they're like, what does that guy know? He's coiling cable and he's saying, I'll be the DP, and I'm like, God, I love it.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, I know. So I'm that guy too, right?
Yes.
And so not having that, I start saying, well, what am I going to do? Because I don't like to, I want to be invested and I don't want to wait around.
Oh my God, Lydia and I were like thinking about what's our next chapter?
Yeah.
Is this going to...
next chapter.
What's going to happen with our industry? Is it going to eventually implode?
Right,
And we're like, okay, so what are we... what's our new, form of revenue?
Yes.
What can we do?
I know.
And I'm like, well, I love to cook. And
I went through the same thing.
Didn't you? You started questioning what you could do as another career, because
I know.
It's like I felt the rug was just pulled out of us. And I also think that going back to the pandemic a little bit, filmmakers need a community.
Yep.
We need to come together to meetings, to look eye to eye at people, to talk, to, and that with the pandemic and then Zoom now.
Yeah.
Even on when the pandemic and the white papers are gone, we're still doing all our production meetings via Zoom.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like you can't sit in the room and you can't read the room very well when you're on a Zoom call.
Oh, sure.
And, it's like, we got to get this back. We got to get to the filmmakers all in the room again and still talk and go through the script and not do it via Zoom.
Yeah, the energy of having people in the same room or on set and collectively having that conversation, like you said, the energy, it's vital to how you do it. You
I
don't,
find a lot of times when you and I would be talking about a shot or anything, we play off of each other just by discussing it.
That's right.
And then the ideas start to flow. That's how I've always been. It's like if I can talk it through with somebody, the ideas start to flow like effortlessly.
Right. That's
where if you're by yourself and you're trying to figure it out and I create another person for me to have dialogue with. I'm like, should we go this way? Is this the right camera motion? Well, I think it is.
Yeah.
It's like I'm talking to myself while I'm reading the script,
Right.
But it's like you can tell that you need that feedback to help you generate the ideas.
Yeah. You want to be in the room with the brush in your hand, painting the canvas. You're not doing it remote. Telling someone, over there, good. No, I don't like that. Go there. It's just so off-putting, and it is a huge disconnect. And it's a whole thing that's kind of overwhelmed a lot of the industry. But it's like, it's more productive, and then people can just, do whatever they're doing and make time for it. But when you're with people, you have to make the time.
Yes.
You can't walk away from that group of people. You have to be engaged. You can't say, I'm over here looking around like, Shane, what are you doing? Oh, there you are. You have to talk.
Yes.
And when people check out, you go, oh, he's not paying attention.
No, in those Zoom meetings, you're like you're answering your emails, you're looking at
what am I
when
it's
buy? Not your department.
Yes.
But listening to the whole scope is what storytelling is all about. Because as much as the costume designer is talking about the colors is going to impact me as with the production designer, these are things you just can't lay waste to it and not engage, and you need to hear the whole process from everyone. You just can't, cash out. And that's what I find that this Zoom world after the pandemic and everything has really generated the loneliness that Lydia was talking about, because we're definitely disconnecting.
Yeah, we're disconnected.
And the devices and everything that we
and I
manage us every day are helping in that process.
Oh, yeah, they are. Yeah.
The wrong way.
The wrong way. And I read something so interesting or heard it on a podcast recently where people's attention span right now is 4 seconds. And that's impacting the way that we're making movies. Because they don't these huge long one shots or these amazing ways of camera movement that used to be in movies are changing to fit the attention span. And
interesting,
and cutting is different.
Yes.
Because people don't have the attention to actually watch the movie.
Right.
I find wide shots are going away. I mean, it's the weirdest thing. It's like, we got to establish the geography of where everyone is. Why are we, losing wide shots? But everyone feels like if it's not on a big screen anymore,
right?
Why do you need?
What am I looking at in here? Where is
small
it?
Screen.
And I find it fascinating too, like Oppenheimer and A Flower Moon. So the length of those films. You talk to people who don't like the movie, and the first thing they say is, I hated they never say about the movie, they say, I hated it, it was too long. That's all they complain about is the length of it. They've never mentioned anything about the filmmaking, or was the story good, or what didn't you like? It's about, forget it, it was 3.5 hours. Yes. It's crazy.
Yes.
That's defining whether the movie was good or bad. But what about the acting? Well, actually very good. I really like that. Good. But what wrong? No, 3.5 hours. I hated it.
Yeah.
I remember going to Dances with Wolves back in the day. That thing was 4 hours long.
Yeah.
And I saw it like 6 times in the theater. I loved it.
Yeah.
I was fascinated with that time period where just after the Civil War and, the West had not been won.
No, I know,
That whole era I was just swept up in,
Yeah.
And I was like, why is this now become this?
It's a phenomenon,
And I find that a horror film can't be more than an hour and a half now. That's like where they
even scripts are getting shorter. It's like now 90 pages.
Yeah.
Like what happened? They used to be 120. Now
120.
they're 90. Oh, okay, good. we don't have time for that. So, it's like now when they sell the tickets to the movies, they say, oh, you're going to the movie. Okay, let me warn you, it's 3 hours long. And they're like, it is? Okay, here, I'm out. Right. It becomes a thing.
So with technology and all of these changes, I think our final question to you, George,
Okay.
is where do you think, because we could talk to you all day.
Oh,
mind you.
yeah.
It's been
I could
such
sit
a
here all day. Yeah.
pleasure to have you.
Well,
Yeah.
Where do you feel the future of filmmaking is going? And, we have AI, we have short attention spans,
Yeah.
we have shorter scripts, we have disconnection with Zoom, we have technology.
We have the theaters kind of going away,
Yeah.
and the streamers taking over.
Yeah.
It's really, I think we're at a tipping point.
Right. I agree with you.
Mhm.
Yeah, we really are, where the technology is taking us. And I guess the bandwidth, I see it, is getting smaller and smaller. The distribution platforms now, and going to the theater, people are content to have that same experience, or something as they qualify it as the same, but it's not, but having that streamed at home, and in your, home theater setup. And I guess the multi-platform releasing now is a thing which I see it's going to happen almost, in the next couple of years, but it'll be simultaneous. That the theatrical window is almost non-existent now. It is, and the marquee films will still sustain that, but everything else will just be, it's all collectively put out there.
Yeah.
And I guess it's hard for people sometimes to wade through all that content. And I hate using the word content, because content seems like you're just producing, more content. That's a stack of boxes.
No, I know. We never knew that shit.
I know,
back
like
in the
content.
day.
Like
Content.
what's in there? Just there's content. Get them out. Yeah, but where are they going? Doesn't matter. People need it. Get it out. Like content. Like, explain that to me, how we came up with content. It's like saying, what book are you reading? A bunch of content right now. Yeah, it's really good. I love it. But, and that's the thing, you got to get away from that. It's still, there's a story in there, and there's images and art that needs to be told. And, content is just something it's like listening to, before you go to sleep, we have green noise, brown noise, or white, and that's what the whole content thing has become, in my opinion, a lot of it. And it's oversaturated. So we're at a tipping point, and I hope that we still maintain the values that we have for, generationally, for the art form, because we're living, that's part of our legacy, and you can't let go of that. But I don't know. It's a perspective that is wide open to interpretation, I guess. I can't read the future, but I like where it is now. But you have to be careful of that, or else it's going to get away from us, I think. Yeah.
Yes.
But really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we so appreciate your time, your wisdom, your sharing,
thanks.
your
Yes, thank you so
vulnerability.
Yeah, I know.
I think that filmmakers, need to hear what you've had to share.
Well,
and
thank
we're
you.
so grateful
Yeah.
to you. George Billinger III is your official title. And I didn't
I don't
say
really
that.
use the third. People say, what is that all about? And because people don't like, how did you get there? I said, well, there was grandfather, then there was dad, and then there was me. And they go, oh, I never knew that. I said, I purchased that on the internet because, yeah.
There was another Billinger.
There was just a plain old name like George Billinger. Oh, God.
Oh, we got to make it.
So we got to make it the third. Yeah. So sit up. Yeah.
So, George, people can follow you on Twitter.
Instagram. I'm not like really. I'm reinventing myself this year with my cinematography. So I will do much better at posting on IG. Now I'm what you'd call a lurker.
Okay.
And they go, why don't you post anything? And I see you looked at my stuff, and like, what, you're weird. And I'm like, I know, but I don't know what to say. But I'm going to do better with the posting, and Twitter. Yes. So, but if you reach out to me, I will get back to you. I'm happy to, put out my email.
Great. And what is the best way for people to connect with you? Because that's really what I'd love for you to share.
I guess probably my, I don't know, what is the best way? I'd probably email.
Okay.
The Instagram thing, I don't go there all the time. I'm not like always on it.
Okay.
So stuff gets missed, or I get a private message, but I'll try to respond. But
okay, great. So what is that? Just so people
My
know.
email is G, and then my last name, BILLINGER @mac.com.
Perfect.
gbillinger@mac.com. And I will do my best to reach out to you. It might take a little bit, but I'm pretty good about having my list and keeping it going.
That's awesome
Yeah.
because I know we have a lot of members that are also looking to level up with Steadicam and just
Oh, yeah.
also talk about operating and the transition that you made from
Yeah.
operator to cinematographer. They're always like a sponge and wanting
Yeah.
this kind of,
Yeah.
because it's one thing to go through it, but if we're able to assist in the process
Yeah.
and kind of steer them around the speed bumps or
Yeah,
the
yeah.
cliffs, that's the way I really I love sharing knowledge and
Yeah, it
doing
is.
that because it's like I wish I would have had a lot of people to help me around
Oh,
the
yeah.
speed bumps and everything.
Yeah, yeah.
And I did have very good mentors, but there were some times where I just had to fall on my face and do
Yeah,
it several
you do.
times
But I found that
before I would learn.
I got so lucky with the people that have taught me and that were willing to teach me,
Mhm.
and took a risk on me, and I'm willing to take a risk on other people, and putting that out there, because without that, you need you need to have the experience of someone that's really looking out for you, or giving you stuff that you can really use. You're discovering that, but you're not making it up on your own, and making a choice that can go the place you don't want it to go, I guess. Right? Yeah.
Exactly. And I
Right.
think on that positive note,
Yeah.
what we've talked about is not isolating, keeping the flame alive, keeping the flame
Right.
of creativity
Yes,
really
it's
is what you're
creativity, yeah.
talking about.
And
That's right.
keeping a community base where you can reach out and touch and connect with others.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
we hadn't seen each other in a long time, and
No.
we connected.
We
on
connected
this
like it.
little,
Oh God, it was yesterday. I sitting there at the assessment screening at Fox, right? And I got invited by Red, and there was a small crowd, and Steven Meisler was supposed to go with me, and then he bailed out, and I'm like, oh, I'm here solo, and I know a few people. Hey, a lot of people I didn't know, like, well, where are all the notables? Oh, well, okay, well, not really. So I sat there, and then, third of the way through, I hear this, and I go, God damn, Shane is right there. And there he is. And I went, oh, my night and my day is made. I said, 97 minutes, I'm sitting on my hands going, God, I want to have a glass of wine with Shane outside right now and just
we
talk
talked
about
for
whatever.
like an hour and a half.
2
out in
hours.
that
They were
courtyard.
literally saying, okay, we're turning the lights off now. The party's over. Shane's like, but wait a minute, George, but it was the greatest thing. So yeah, it was like yesterday, even though it wasn't.
Yeah.
And that's the great thing about this business, being around people like Shane and yourself, and being connected.
Yes.
And it's a specialty thing that a lot of other industries and businesses you don't get, because we're a people industry, and the people that you find are some of the best people out there.
And we feel the exact same way about you, George.
Oh, well, thank you.
And what a treat it has been. So thank you
It's been my treat
so
being
much.
here. My God, yeah. No, I'm thrilled.
For all of your time, your wisdom, your
Oh my God.
energy,
Anything
and
I
talent.
can do. No, you guys have been so, generous to me over the years. And, it's just been really nice being here and being able to participate. Love what you're doing.
Oh,
So inspiring.
thank you.
Keep it going.
We will.
Oh, yeah, I know you will. Yeah. All right, Nan Lux.
Keep these lights on.
Keep those lights on. Do I look good? Nan Lux, see? Yeah. You're taking years off my life. Thank you.
And that concludes this episode of the Inner Circle podcast.